step back from whatever you think is happening on the outside and go within. Because remember, your mind is not a camera, it's a projector. It projects what your internal reality is. And if you're fear-based and scarcity minded, the projection your mind is going to give to you in the outside world is going to be fear-based and scarcity minded.
Welcome back to another episode of Voices of the Goddess, where brilliant women come to take a break from their successful and sometimes overwhelming lives to level up, live free, and create abundance.
If your hectic life has you feeling a bit lost, if you're building your career, brand, or business, or if you simply want to get the most out of life, this podcast is for you. I'm your host, Julieta Wenzel, founder of Body and Soul PT and Soul Candy.
And I'm your co-host, Graciela Laurent, professional portrait photographer specializing in boudoir and personal branding.
Whether you're relaxing with a cup of coffee or running around town, we've got you.
Whatever you're doing, thanks for bringing us along and sharing a laugh.
Here comes the magic.
Hello, sunshine.
Hello. You promised a flat intro, not a sing-song intro.
That wasn't sing-songy. I was animated, but it wasn't sing-songy.
Okay.
Sing-song is like, hello, sunshine.
Got it.
See?
Thank you for that distinguishing of
Well, tone is important, right? Tone is important. Oh, I have a story to share. You want to hear it?
I love your stories. So yes, please share.
Well, this one is not TikTok based. It is home based.
It's not.
Although, I always have a few TikTokers in the old pocket. But so, my kids, I have twins. And for those that don't know, and they just recently turned 14. So my kids are the last human beings on earth of that age who do not own cell phones. And they are just dying to have a cell phone. They've been asking me probably since they were like 8 or 9 years old. And I've always said no for a variety of reasons. But the most important reason I tell them is because no, your phone, you can get a job, you can pay for it. It's your bill. I pay enough. I pay for school. I pay for everything else in your life, etc. So anyway, so because of this, my kids, especially my son, has been very focused on being old enough to get a job. So they finally turned 14. My son knows that our local grocery store, Publix, hires at 14. There's lots and lots of laws and rules as to how many hours and when he can work and all of that. But in his mind, he's ready to be a millionaire, which is, hysterical because he spends money like there's no tomorrow. Like money burns a hole in his pocket, right? Like my daughter, she can save it, no problem. My son, if he has it, he gets a pain in his chest because he can't go spend it, So anyway, so I tell him, listen, before I let you apply for the job, you have to take a financial literacy course. And he's like, oh, do I really have to? And I was like, yes. And he was dragging his feet. And I was like, every day you're not working, it's every day you don't have your own money, And anyway, so he's like, can't I just take the class over the summer? And I was like, all right, I'll make you a deal. If you save 50% of your paycheck into savings and 50% of your paycheck you can spend, if you make that deal, then I'll let you put off the financial literacy course until summer. And he was like, deal. So we shook on it and everything. It was very cute. And now we'll see, So he did apply for the job, which PS had like a million questions. Like they create these scenarios where you have to choose which one you are more in agreement with. And they're all either really great answers or really horrible answers, right? Like, I hate working in groups is on one side. And the other one is I will tell people what they need to hear to get what I want, right? Like these two terrible things that you're like, I don't want to pick either one, but the system forces you so that it can figure out who you are. So here you are trying to, anyway, the whole thing. But back to money. The point is he swore, everybody write this down, that he would save 50% of his money. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm going to have to put it under lock and key.
That's my question was, is like, how are we going to ensure that that's what he's doing?
Yeah. So we use a something called a green light account. And there I can control what he has access to and what he doesn't. So yeah, I have that system locked down.
All right. Well, that sounds hopeful and exciting that he wants to work, especially in this day and age when, The word out on the street is the young people don't want to work. I don't know if that's actually true or not, but
Well, I
there's
will
your
tell you,
son proving them wrong.
yeah, I mean, he has definitely got the worker mentality. My daughter, she's like, I think I'll wait till summer. Like, again, she keeps her money, right? So she doesn't feel so desperate to, go make money. He's like, he wants it yesterday, but I appreciate that, both ways, honestly. My kids are me bifurcated. Like I'm a little bit of everything. So it's great to see them.
Awesome. All right. Shall we bring on our guest?
Let's.
All right, here we go. Hello, Kathryn.
Hi, ladies. How are you?
We are great. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today. What we'd first like you to do is introduce yourself to our audience, tell them a little bit about who you are and what you do, and what keeps you passionate about what you do.
Well, thank you again for being here. And Graciela, your story really hit home because one thing I didn't tell you guys, I have a twin brother.
Oh, wow.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I have a
amazing.
twin brother and we both went to law school, right? We both did the professional path, but then he took off and started buying and selling companies. So he became this kind of entrepreneur lawyer. And I just kept working for the same company and, getting the paycheck and, and it was those two differences in lifestyle. Cause I'm like, wait a minute, we both started at the same place. How come he has more money than me? That's what really motivated me to start saying, well, what is money? What can I do? How can I make money meaningful to me? Right.
That's
And
amazing.
I think women in general have that. I always had the sense that men knew something about money that I didn't. And it may have been about my brother. I don't know. But it was always a sense of lack, that I was missing something. And, no matter how hard I worked, no matter how hard I saved, no matter what I did that the world said to do, it just never came about the way I wanted it to. So that's when I started to say, well, wait a minute. Do I really know what money is? Do I really know how to use money and be with money? And the quick answer was heck no. So when you don't know something, what do? You dive in and you learn about it. And it was about that same time that I had started on the spiritual path. So at one point I realized, wait a minute, money is just energy. It's just an exchange of value. But if I don't value myself, I'm not going to get that confirmation from the outside world. So that led me, I call it the path of breadcrumbs. If one thing leads to another. So just to kind of sum this up, after many years of reading, learning, experimenting, I think I found it.
I'm so excited for you to dive into all your good, juicy stuff. I mean, I think a lot about money, especially like at this point in my life. And I really think about it in terms of my children, right? Because all of our relationship with money starts at home, right? It starts with your parents telling you, no, we don't have money for that, or no, we're not going to spend money on that, and all those little nuggets that parents drop on kids, as was dropped on me and as I drop on my children, right? Like they're all little messages, and you don't realize how much, as my daughter says, it imprints on you so much, right? Like I remember growing up and there was a lot of lack and a lot of scarcity and scraping by and things like that. And so there are still things to this day that I refuse to spend money on because I'm like, that's ridiculous. And it could literally be $1, right? Like someone wanted to charge me $1 to send a fax. And on principle, I would not do it. I was like, I would rather drive there at $27 a gallon of gas than pay you $1 to fax something. That's ridiculous. But then on the flip side, also, I reward myself for doing good things by spending money also, right? So it's really interesting how much work we all have to do around money.
Well, and that's why I became a money coach, because money touches every aspect of our life. And I work with women because I know I never received any of this training. And I truly believe that when women learn how to peacefully create abundant wealth, we can heal the world. Yeah. And that's why I was so excited to be on this show, because your mission is to help women discover and lift up their magic and show it to the world. So we're very much aligned in that. So why did I go into wealth coaching with women? Well, I realized money and wealth have both a masculine and a feminine side. Okay. And we see the masculine all the time. That's how our financial system and economy was created. It was created by men, for men, and it highlights their strengths, and it also highlights women's weaknesses. And let me just explain that very quickly. Masculine energy, we have both, everyone has masculine and feminine energy. Masculine energy is more linear. It's focused, it's goal oriented, it's measurable, and it's data driven. Well, what does that sound like? Balance your checkbook. How much money are you making? How much are you worth in the marketplace? That's all quantifiable, right? It can come down to numbers. Well, that always felt unnatural to me. So I started looking into, well, what is the feminine side? What is the sacred feminine energy? And that goes back more to it's unseen, it's fluid, it's flowing, and it's internal and becomes expressed externally. So when women can connect internally to their feminine energy and then create in the outside world, that's when change happens. That's when you flow with this there's this energy of life. Call it God, I call it divine love. It's in everything. But when you connect with that and then allow that to flow out into your life, it's magnificent.
You're 100% spot on. I've had so many different business coaches over the years, and really, and I'm sure this is a useful tool, right? But like metrics, everyone's always like, watch your numbers, do a spreadsheet. If you don't know, at any given moment, your numbers, it's terrible, blah, blah, blah. And it, like you said, charts, linear, literally physical lines everywhere, right? And I always found, I've been in business 10 years now, the more I gripped onto those numbers, the worse my month would be, right? Like I would never generate what I needed to generate or that I wanted to generate, right? By following this rigidity. And when I would just relax and do what I was meant to do from my heart, I'm telling you, the money came to me without any extra strife on my side or pain on my side, right? Whereas when I was obsessing, I'm not saying don't be aware. I'm just saying when I was obsessing, it was not working for me.
Right. And you have just described what happens to women because we try to adapt to this more masculine energy. And don't get me wrong, it's very necessary, but I've figured out, like I said, I've found the secret. So the world wants us to do first, take that action, look at those numbers, then have, and then you be, do, have, be. But what we're really looking for is the being. Mm-hmm. So when you start by going inside and become abundant, it doesn't matter what's going on around you. You're abundant first. Then you allow that to inform your actions. And then whatever shows up is like a miracle because you've already established your beingness. So instead of do, have, be, and we get so caught up in that, and then you add fear on top of that, and then you add all the ego games, and then you add comparison, judgment, blah, blah, blah. I've done it, believe me. Instead of doing that, focus on being first. And I have a definition of being that you ladies might find helpful. It reminds me. So when you take the 5 letters, BEING, and then you say, born to express the infinite nature of God. Oof. Born to express. And then I started playing with that and I'm like, wait a minute, it's not just expression. It's also experiencing. Born to experience the infinite nature of God. And so that's that energy of life that I'm talking about, that you, as you allow it to come through you, you get to experience it in the physical world. And I had another realization that I can share. I don't want to talk the whole time.
No, it's all about you, Kathryn. You're on a roll.
Okay. So I had this experience. We went to Kauai. It's a very small island in Hawaii. That was a big trip for us. And it was my husband and daughter and myself. And we took one of those sightseeing boats. And we were supposed to go snorkeling, but the sea was rough and it was, windy. And the captain was like, "Yeah, we'll just drive parallel to the Nepali coast." And I don't know if you guys have ever seen the Nepali coast, but it's straight out of Jurassic Park. It looks like it's prehistoric. It's gorgeous. But you just stare at it and you just get this otherworldly feeling. So what happened was we're cruising along and, everybody's on the back of the boat. Well, at the front of the boat are these very narrow platform with a railing. And the captain said, "Well, you can go up there, but you promise me you'll always hold on to the railing, because I've had people, we hit a wave and they bounce off." So I was like, okay. So I went up there and I just stood there, and I don't know what it was. It was the wind, the air, the waves, the rocking of the boat, the ocean, the beautiful scenery. But I just let go. And I asked God what I usually ask: "Please let me be more like you." Because I'm always trying to be better, be more. And in the past, when I asked that question, there would be silence, would never get an answer. But this time, standing on that boat, rocking, feeling the waves, and I just let go, I asked that question: "Please let me be more like you." And this time I got an answer. And the answer was: "Please let me be more like you."
Wow.
I mean, I literally almost fell off the boat.
Wow.
And I've thought about that moment so many times since. And I really believe as you allow this life energy to flow through you, that's God experiencing you in time and space. And when you think of your life from that perspective, you're going to make different choices. You're going to be, let go of the criticism and the judgment. You don't need that, because God's experiencing your life through you. I mean, that to me was like a mind-blowing concept.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So thank you for letting me share that story. Oh, and then what happened after that, this was, okay, I'm having this moment in front of the boat. Nobody knows this is happening. And as soon as I said yes, I started looking around going, "Well, do you see this? Do you see this? Look at that." And wouldn't you know it, a flash of silver in front of the boat, a pod of dolphins showed up, just magically. And one looked back at me and I could tell he kind of winked. And that's just me being fanciful. But the timing of it and it was incredible. So I just encourage your listeners and your audience to think about that. And how would God experience my life? And so you have to let go of your limiting thinking. You have to let go of the "I'm not worthy," or, all the blah, 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 because you're here for a reason. You're here to do something with yourself and with your talents and skills and unique abilities, but you're here to let God experience your life. And money then becomes just a tool. It's not your master. All of a sudden, everything drops down. Everything doesn't lose its importance, but it's put back into its proper place. So as you allow this, and as you say, "I am abundant and I am prosperous and I am wealthy," the whole reality changes.
I wonder if you can speak to, you brought up spirituality earlier in the conversation, and those of us that are on more of a spiritual path often view money as not being spiritual. Money is the root of all evil, and all these negative beliefs that we have that keeps money away from us, and like, even, as a healer, well, if you were really a healer, like you wouldn't want money for what you do, because hearing spiritual and blah, blah. Can you speak to that at all?
Of course. Yes. Because I've had that conflict. How can I charge for this? If you see money as energy and yourself as energy, and as you decide to move through the world and in the world as whatever energy you decide, money will come to you. Again, it's that exchange of value. So I believe those things, money's the root of all evil, and you shouldn't charge for this. We need a medium of exchange. It's a giving and receiving. And for us, it's money. But all these different ideas have been piled on it, religious and otherwise. And just because you've heard that your whole life doesn't mean it's true. Find out your truth for yourself. And as you move forward and again, allow that flow to come out, people will recognize that and they'll see that and they'll see that, oh yeah, I want to pay you for this. That's what we do. That's the exchange. So see it as a spiritual exchange. And I will say one thing, if I can bring this up, during COVID, everyone got so fearful about money. And I understand, and it was, awful. And it was I felt like the earth was just totally turning inside out. The world was just becoming this place that I didn't recognize. And that's when I decided, you know what? I'm going to tell people there's a different way to be with money. And that's when I wrote my book, The Money Tree. And I wanted it to be a blessing for people that they could say, you know what? I'm going to look at money differently. I'm going to see it as this giving energy, this flowing and receiving, and stay in that energy as opposed to the fear-based, which obviously limits me. So in answer to your question, Julietta, I would highly recommend. The book is free on Amazon if you're a Kindle Unlimited reader. It takes about 2 hours to read. And I've had so many people say, thank you for writing this book. So I hope that answered your question.
That was great. Yes. Thank you.
That's so beautiful. And I was thinking about how, the stories that we have told ourselves about money, but, money itself, paper money anyway, and now digital money, right? Like we don't even hold paper or coins anymore. But it's just the modern version of energy exchange, right? Because before money existed, it was like, well, I'll give you a chicken if you give me a cow, or right? Like, or I'll plow your field if you watch my kids or whatever, right? Like there's always been an energy exchange for all time immemorial, right? Like,
right.
This is just the modern version of it, right?
Right. And the other thing I always like to remind people, the very word money contains masculine and feminine energy. So think about it. The first syllable, man, is very definite. It's very defined. It starts and stops. What does that remind you of? Masculine. And then money, the second syllable, E. I mean, we could play around, the three of us play around with that and come up with 20 different combinations. So step back from whatever you think is happening on the outside and go within. Because remember, your mind is not a camera. It's a projector. It projects what your internal reality is. And if you're fear-based and scarcity minded, the projection your mind is going to give to you in the outside world is going to be fear-based and scarcity minded. But why not change that? Why not change that to be abundant and fluid and open to possibilities, and not this cause and effect, but there's so many infinite possibilities available to me. It's the Newtonian way of looking at things versus quantum physics. Read books. Dr. Joe Dispenza has a quote that I just loved. He said, we are consciousness using our bodies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we love that. We love it.
Yeah. So raise your consciousness is what I'm urging people to do, and step into abundance and step away from fear.
And I also love that you're speaking about, women in this, because, I speak to this all of the time that, we live in this patriarchal society that is so overwhelmed by toxic masculinity. And, to heal what's happening out there, we need to bring balance into that masculine and feminine energy. And right now, the message that I've received is that right now the women need to heal themselves and step firmly into their sacred feminine to allow the men to heal. because they are so overwhelmed by this toxic masculinity. So few of them can actually step out of it. And so by us bringing in more of the sacred feminine, that will allow them to step into their divine masculine so that we can have this balance on the world. And to achieve that, we need more women to have more money.
Exactly. That's my whole mission. Yes. But to have money from this fluid flowing place, not the striving or the doing. It's from the being. Yeah, exactly. That was very well said, Julietta.
And when you say, like, I like that talking about flow, because energy does flow. And if we're viewing money as energy, it has to flow. You know, when you're trying to hold on to it and just, that goes against the energy of it.
Well, think about this. I mean, anyone who's watching or listening, clasp your hands, okay? Put them together, make a fist, and then say, I want to receive.
Yeah.
Guess what? You can't. You can only receive when you're open and you're not grasping and holding on. So it's a thing. It's a way of being. I've got a new book that I'm working on that kind of speaks to this. The working title is How to Become a Socialist. And socialist is SOUL. Socialist.
Oh,
How to become a socialist, a revolutionary way of living as love.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
How exciting.
Yeah.
So one of the questions that we ask all the time is about limiting beliefs, because or as someone pointed out to Julietta once, all beliefs are limiting, which, that's a whole separate conversation. But getting to where you are today and knowing that you're on a continuous path, what is a limiting belief that you had to leave behind and, to get to where you are today?
How much time do you have?
approximately 4 minutes.
Yeah, I know. It's the biggest one. I saw myself as a lawyer for so many years. Lawyers aren't spiritual. Maybe they are, but not when they're practicing law. So it was kind of stepping away from that persona and stepping into seeing the world differently and seeing that it is valuable to other people. Yeah. It was those limiting beliefs.
I think so much of the time we, hear something like I was saying earlier in our youth, and then we cling on to that as our identity, right? This is who I am. And then, I have a friend that does a lot of personal development. I've done a lot of personal development work with her, and she would look at me, like it's just a decision, And I was like, what do you mean? This is the hardest thing in the world. I have to change my mind about something. And she's like, it's just a decision. Like, you just decide, So with your book and with what you do, I presume you help break down that decision.
Right. Well, what I do when women, when I have a new client, the first thing I tell them, it's going to be an 8-week journey. It's going to involve meditation and mindfulness and journaling. So, and then we meet once a week and work on the various experiences, the various visualizations, etc. And at the end of that 8 weeks, they always say, oh my gosh, I never knew this was possible. And so the limiting beliefs keep you not knowing. But as you learn to recognize them, first of all, you have to become aware and then shift from that limiting belief to the expansion. So one thing I also teach my clients, are you creating from fear or love? It's one or the other. You can't create with both. Yeah. And when you recognize you're creating with fear, shift into love. And so it's kind of an ongoing mindfulness awareness. When you speak, don't speak negatively about money. When you act, when you pay, don't feel like, I'm not going to have food on the table. There's abundance everywhere. But again, you create it from the inside out. So I hope that helps.
I love that. And that helps me. I'm in a space of creating something new. And I'm not going to lie, there's a lot of fear in the direction that I'm going. And just that little reminder right now to, like, I'm creating this from a space of love, and I need to stay in that space of love and let the fear go.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So one thing to remember, and tell me when to be quiet. One thing to remember is you are not your mind. You are not your body. You are the awareness of those. And your body is really an interesting communication device. It will tell you what your mind is thinking. So when you tune into, like for me, when I get stressed, my shoulders, this is how I practice law the whole time. My shoulders were up. Not really, I'm exaggerating, but that I felt like that. I just felt just like, this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing. Why am I doing this? And when you start to recognize how your body responds to fear and stress, then you can take a minute. You always have a minute, and step back and take those 3 long, slow, deep breaths in. This is called box breathing. Stop at the top for a second and then slowly release and stop. And you do that 3 times, your body will be out of fear. It works like magic. And then look at the thing again and say, how can I respond to this as love? And you'll see other possibilities. So.
Oh, that's beautiful. It reminds me, and I don't know if I've told this story on this podcast before, but I keep trying to teach my kids these things, hoping that, they won't need all the therapy that I had to have, right? Like, and I said to my kids when they were really little, always listen to your belly, right? If you're not sure if you should be doing something, if you're not sure if, it's ethical, or if you're like, I don't know, stealing or whatever, whatever little kids do, listen to your body. Your belly will hurt, or you'll get a headache or something like that. So one day my son walks up to me. He must have been about 4 years old. And he's like, Mom, did I do something bad today? And I'm like, what do you mean? And why would you say that? And then of course, in the back of my head, I'm like, did you did you break something and not tell me? What happened? And he goes, well, it's just that my belly hurts. And I'm like, oh, also Halloween candy will give you the same feeling. So,
Oh man, that's hilarious.
I think it's so powerful to be just so present, and aware, and not let yourself be pushed around by life, right? Like, I was in the legal field for 20 years, and same thing, I spent so much of my time just tightened up because everything had to be just so, and everything was an emergency. And, when I left the legal field to become a photographer, I wondered why everyone around me was moving so slowly. And I didn't realize that it's that the legal world goes abnormally quickly, and everything's an emergency. It's like a coup every day, right?
Yeah.
And out here, I'm like, oh, the other day, Julie and I had an experience, and I, let's just say I really enjoyed smelling some flowers. And Julietta looks at me, she goes, I do that every day. Like, I live like that every day. And I was like, what? You're experiencing life like that every day? What am I suffering for?
Exactly. So ask yourself, what am I suffering for?
Yeah.
And keep asking that, and you'll find at the end you're not, or you'll find it's not worth it.
It's never worth it, Kathryn. And no one has ever died from being overly filled with love, right? Like, if you keep choosing love over fear, like, I have yet for anyone to be like, I love too much. Right?
Yeah, no, you're right on. You're right on.
All right. This has been a fantastic show, and it's kind of time to wind down. So do you have a parting golden nugget of wisdom for our knowledge, for our audience?
I do. Graciela, you mentioned presence. Well, how do you get presence? Well, for me, I go within and connect to divine essence. I believe every person on the planet has divine essence, and the journey that we have in time and space is to remember that. You go off and you do all the things that you think may work, but it doesn't. And all the other things happen, and you may get sick or whatever. But at the end of your life, that divine essence is still there. And as you connect to it, as you meditate, as you live from your essence, you will be present and have presence. Beautiful. So that is my wish for you.
Beautiful. I love that.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Kathryn. This has been a wonderful show. My wish is that everybody listens to it because we all needed to hear this today. So,
Well, thank you. This has been really fun. And you ladies are doing such great work in the world. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
And as a last little visual gift for those watching on YouTube, can you hold your book right up to the camera? I just want to show everybody the beautiful artwork on there. It is so gorgeous. There you go. Tell us about that in 30 seconds.
This graphic I had designed, it is the Celtic knot, which is an ancient symbol of connection and spirituality. And I had the artist create the feminine form in the middle. So that's what I want every woman listening to this and seeing this to remember, that we are connected to infinite abundance. And as you ground yourself in this and then allow yourself to express it, it just flows. And so when you look at this graphic, every line flows back into itself. Every direction comes back around. And so the infinity symbol is also part of this. It's at the bottom.
Yeah.
It's truly, truly gorgeous. I can't wait to jump on your website and definitely meet up with you again. This has been really amazing. And I can't wait to see all the big waves of change go throughout the world based on your work. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much.
All right. Have a magical day, everyone.
Bye-bye, listeners.
Thanks for joining us today and keeping us in the top 10% of podcasts in the world.
Ask us how you can promote your business on this podcast as a sponsor, and make sure you check out the show notes for details on how to get in touch with Julieta, Graciela, or today's special guest.
We're sending you lots of love and gratitude. Have a magical day.